So throughout school, you had what was called careers advice.
Okay.
I don't know if people still do. If other guests have mentioned as well, but you had careers advice. So you'd go and see a careers advisor about what you wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to sit there and think, well, it's just, I'm a nurse.
Yeah.
I am a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
That's
the only option.
That's the only option. So there was never, lots of people go through that angst and that thinking. That I'd always known. We spoke before recording as well about a photo I've got of years ago, which I've lost somewhere in my house, about me being in a nurse's uniform.
And what age were you at?
4 or 5.
4 or 5. So it's always been...
Yeah.
It's always been what you've meant to do.
Meant to do is a good word, not wanted to do. It just has been. It just is.
It's who you are.
It's who I am. It's my identity. So come the age of 18, the next step was then, well, where am I going to do my training? So I know what I'm going to do, but where am I going to do it? And I suppose another thing about my character is I always want to be the best that I can. So I thought, well, where's the best place that I can do it? I want to go to one of the London teaching hospitals. If I'm going to train to be a nurse, I want a name that will command respect and make me feel sit up tall and think I train there.
Exactly.
So I applied to all the big names, all the big London teaching hospitals. I got the interviews. I King's, Guy's, all different ones. And the one that I felt most comfortable at was Guy's Hospital near London Bridge. So I'd done my application. So by the time I'd done my A-levels, the final exams that you do, I knew that I was going to leave school in, August time, July time. And then I was going to start my nurse training in September.
And how old were you?
18.
18.
I can't believe I'm saying that.
Gosh.
Nearly 19.
That's crazy.
So you're flung into a world, and I find that crazy now.
Yeah.
You're flung into a world, and the training was different as well. So you started by doing a period in I won't say university, it wasn't, a period in nurse education for say 6 weeks, and then you'd go on the ward. So you imagine being 18, 19.
Oh my gosh.
6 weeks.
Yeah.
Bash. You've got a uniform on. You're out there.
And what were you expected to do in that first kind of... Like, were you given a lot of responsibility?
In hindsight, yeah.
Yeah.
A terrifying amount of responsibility. I'd done care work. So I've done lots of jobs as I was growing up as well for money. So I'd had worked in a care home for older people. So I'd had experience at least of care. I think I was 14 when somebody said a resident had died.
Wow.
And they said, you're going to be a nurse. Come and help us.
Oh my gosh.
But you are thrust into an environment at a very, very young age. You're performing intimate care for people. You're dealing with life and death. You're dealing with human emotions at an age when you're still forming your own emotions and you're still growing as a person. So it's tough. It was a tough training.
And I'm just wondering about the whole death thing, because being involved in that at the age of 14, like when you were growing up, how was death discussed in your family? Was it, I'm wondering how it was discussed.
I can't pull a memory and say this is how it was discussed, but I can just reflect on our family. So everything was discussed openly. So birth, death, sex, it just was.
That's amazing.
It's just part of life.
Yeah.
And I know other families where things are buried under the carpet, where things aren't discussed, and it's more difficult. But I think it's just part of life. Maybe my dad's, the nature, the circle of life. It wasn't something that I remember standing out as a conversation ever. It just is.
It just was.
It just was.
It just was. And did you ever have a fear of it?
Not overtly, no.
No.
Not overtly.
Man, I remember growing up and my mom, I was like 9 years old, I think, and she told me that her dad had passed away. And like, I now know that I suffer with obsessive compulsive disorder, but back then, had no idea. And I refused to say the word death. That's because I was like, something would happen if I said it. So I would say, my grandfather kaput. And that's all I would say. And it was weird. Like every month I would get this strange dream that would cause me to go into like such a panic over like what is out there and like what comes next. And even sometimes, like to this day at 25, almost 26, I still get into those like the heart starts pumping and you get all like flushed. And yeah, it's interesting. I'll be curious to know how you've dealt with that over your life. But going back to obviously your first year learning how to be a nurse and all that sort of stuff, do you have any stories that particularly pop out to you?
I have so many stories. I've just got to filter about what I can talk about and share.
Well, we love it all.
Let me think. I'm thinking about stories that I can share. I remember my paediatric experience. I remember looking after children, and I was working at Guy's. And because it was such a specialist hospital, it actually had its downside as well. So,
and what do you mean by specialist hospital?
Well, so we would have paediatric intensive care. We had the most sick, actually cardiothoracic, so children with heart defects.
Okay.
So if you trained in a non-specialist hospital, you'd get to grips with tonsillitis, with children with broken legs, broken arms, everyday childhood diseases. But I had less experience of that.
Okay.
And I had experience of incredibly sick, tiny children with cardiac problems as well. So I remember the huge responsibility of that as well. So that 6-week placement was fabulously interesting, but really, really scary. A patient, I can share a patient that, I'm not going to obviously share names, but I will share a story of a patient that I met. As again, with student nurse, you'd have 6 weeks in placement and 6 weeks, 6 weeks learning, 6 weeks placement. So you have quite a long time on a ward. And I remember meeting this incredible man that had been what they call degloved.
Okay.
So that means he'd had an accident where so much of his skin had been, if you imagine peeling off a sock.
Oh, God.
So peeling off. So a really horrific injury. And we just absolutely clicked. We clicked and we bonded. And give me a pretend name so I don't...
Jeff.
Let's call him Jeff. So I said, okay, Jeff. I said, by the end of my placement, and we both knew that it was time-bounded, it's a 6-week placement, we're going to walk down the ward together. You and me are going to walk down that ward. And he went from being this catastrophic, this horrendous injury, and cared for him. And he did, and at the end of the 6-week placement, we walked together. And that will always stay with me, moments like that.